Today, there are over 5 billion people who are connected with the internet. That number is expected to go up to 7 billion people in the next 4 to 5 years. Therefore, it's no surprise that in 2015, there were 14 regulations across the globe, and today there are 142 regulations that deal with privacy. Unlike the European Union, which is governed by the GDPR, Asia Pacific is somewhat fragmented. Each country has its own law, and in some instances, they are very different. And of course, there are certain commonalities. But there are data breaches that are taking place across the globe. And as these data breaches take place, there are learnings, and those learnings are being implemented. So,
Now, what is this framework all about? Well, it's a principle based approach. Okay. It's a principle based approach and it focuses on two important aspects. One is the data subject rights. So when you say data subject is nothing but the individual, in question, whose data subject rights is what they're focusing on. And secondly, when we're talking about data processors and data controllers, it talks about the accountability of the data processors and on the and the controller. Now, apart from that, there are three more pillars. One is your cross-border data flows. Second is there has to be a cooperation within the region, and last but not the least is creating awareness and promoting good practices across the region. Because of this collaborative approach, the overall data protection landscape in this region has been strengthened very well. You must be wondering why government services are specifically the most important or primary target for any hackers across the world. Well, there are several reasons behind that. Okay, so one of the important reason is, of course, the government agencies, they hold valuable data. Okay, they hold extensive personal information. Some of them hold national security secrets also.
the biggest danger and the biggest risk that Kirti was talking about is how do you define a comprehensive cyber risk assessment? There's a lot of confusion between a threat, a vulnerability, and a risk. These are three distinct terms. The moment you start confusing these terms or using them interchangeably, you're not doing a comprehensive risk assessment, whether it's cyber or otherwise. A threat is a macro level event, it cannot be managed. For example, virus attack is a threat. A vulnerability is something intrinsic in your organization, in the design, in the operation of your organization that will attract the threat. And the risk is something which you can actually touch and feel. It's an actual statement. But if you just try to manage the threat without understanding what the vulnerability is, and therefore actually looking at what the actual risk can be, then you will really not be able to get into specifics. In this particular instance, the example that I've given to you is that there was a third party service provider. All of you have third party service providers. Ask yourself the question, what are you doing to ensure that this third party service provider is mitigating risks in the context of breach of the data that you have given to the third party?
As privacy laws tighten, how can marketers in Asia Pacific balance privacy and personalization?
The point really is that you can define a purpose for which you're getting the information. I don't think that's the problem. The problem is, are you only using it for the purpose for which you've got that information? And that's where there is a line. And if you are doing the latter, then you must make sure that there are means and measures that you have to be able to protect that data. Don't leave it lying open. You could encrypt it and you could keep it, like what Kirti said. Your personal data, that's your personal data. Then eventually, somebody else's personal data, which is now lying with you, it's something personal to you. That's your castle. A password is the key to the castle. You have to protect your castle.